For many years, Elvis Presley represented more than music. He symbolized fame at its most powerful and most demanding. To millions of fans, he appeared larger than life, a performer who gave every part of himself to the stage and the public. Yet behind that image was a man who lived under constant observation. Fame shaped his opportunities, but it also shaped his fears. Over time, the story of Elvis became carefully managed through interviews, performances, and public appearances. However, history often becomes clearer only after time passes. When historians, archivists, and family members later examined preserved materials connected to his life, they began to notice patterns. These patterns suggested not scandal, but pressure. Not mystery, but complexity. The later years of Elvis's life cannot be understood only through headlines or rumors. Instead, they require examining environment, relationships, and emotional weight. Documentary research today focuses less on sensational stories and more on context. The goal is not to challenge his legacy, but to understand the full human experience behind global fame. That shift in storytelling has helped audiences see Elvis not only as an icon, but as a person navigating extraordinary circumstances. When Elvis purchased Graceland in 1957, he was still extremely young and adjusting to rapid global fame. To outside observers, the mansion symbolized success, but historical analysis suggests it also functioned as a protective space. Fame often removes normal boundaries, and for Elvis, privacy became increasingly rare. Graceland provided structure and familiarity. Moving his parents and grandmother into the home reinforced that sense of stability. In the early years, the house was filled with routine family life rather than celebrity culture. After the loss of his mother, emotional associations with the home deepened. Researchers often point to this period as a turning point. Personal loss combined with rising career pressure created a more private and controlled lifestyle. Over time, Graceland evolved along with him. The decor choices, unusual room designs, and customized interiors reflected personal taste, but also psychological comfort. Documentary historians note that creative environments often help artists regain control when public life feels overwhelming. Graceland slowly became both residence and emotional refuge. It was a place where Elvis could temporarily step outside his public identity, even though that separation never lasted completely. As Elvis's career expanded internationally, Graceland changed in purpose. It remained a home, but it also became a controlled social environment. Friends, musicians, and visitors were welcomed, but boundaries existed. Certain parts of the house remained private, reinforcing the idea that fame requires protective spaces. Researchers studying celebrity culture often highlight this pattern. Public figures frequently separate performance identity from personal identity through physical space. At Graceland, design choices reflected emotional needs. Bold colors, heavy textures, and immersive room themes created a world separate from outside expectations. These environments were not random decoration. Many experts believe they represented emotional regulation. Life and entertainment can be unpredictable, but physical surroundings can create predictability. Over time, these spaces became part of Elvis's story. They showed how environment influences mental comfort. Even after his passing, preservation teams kept these areas exactly as he left them. This decision was not purely nostalgic. It reflected a desire to preserve historical authenticity. Museums connected to cultural icons often face this challenge. Should they modernize for accessibility or preserve reality exactly? In Graceland's case, preservation became part of historical storytelling. After Elvis's death, preserving his belongings became a massive responsibility. Every item connected to his life carried cultural and emotional meaning. Archival preservation requires precision, documentation, and neutrality. But Graceland was unique. It was not originally designed as a museum or research center. It was a family home first. That emotional context influenced preservation decisions. Over time, archivists cataloged clothing, handwritten notes, contracts, photographs, and personal objects. Each item represented a moment in time. Unlike typical celebrity archives stored in universities, Graceland's collection remained tied to location. This created a different emotional experience for visitors and researchers. Walking through the house allowed people to understand daily life patterns rather than only public achievements. Preservation teams focused on maintaining authenticity rather than creating dramatic displays. This approach increased historical credibility. Modern documentary standards emphasize verified records and contextual storytelling. By preserving even ordinary items, archivists allowed future historians to reconstruct daily routines and decision patterns. This method reflects modern historical ethics, where accuracy and emotional context are valued equally. By the late 1980s, the archival collection had grown into a complex operation. Cataloging more than 1 million items required advanced documentation systems. Each object was tied to dates, locations, and life events. This level of record keeping created an unusually detailed historical timeline. Many researchers later described the archive as one of the most complete celebrity life records ever preserved. What made it unique was not just size, but emotional continuity. The archive did not separate personal life from professional life. Instead, it showed how both overlapped. Medical paperwork existed alongside stage costumes. Financial documents existed alongside personal letters. This combination provided a realistic view of celebrity life. Fame rarely exists separately from health, stress, or family responsibility. Preservation teams focused on conservation techniques that prevented aging damage while maintaining original condition. This approach allowed objects to remain historically accurate. Over time, historians realized the archive was not just about documenting success. It documented pressure, routine, and personal decision-making. This broader perspective has shaped modern documentary storytelling about entertainment history. One of the most discussed aspects of Graceland preservation involves restricted areas. Even as public tour expanded, certain sections remained private. This created curiosity, but also ethical discussion. Historians debate how much access should exist when documenting personal lives. Privacy does not disappear after death, especially when families remain connected to legacy preservation. Restricted areas often represent emotional rather than historical boundaries. In many historical homes, certain rooms remain closed because they represent deeply personal moments. Graceland followed similar patterns. Public areas reflected career and social life. Private areas reflected daily routine and personal recovery from public exposure. Documentary ethics today emphasize respectful storytelling rather than sensational exposure. This approach helps maintain credibility with both audiences and families connected to historical figures. Over time, historians shifted focus away from hidden room speculation and toward documented material. This allowed research to remain grounded in verifiable facts rather than assumptions. Family members experienced Graceland differently from the public. For them, it represented childhood memories, family routines, and normal life moments. Historical interviews suggest these experiences shaped how preservation decisions were made later. Emotional connection often influences historical conservation. When locations represent family identity, preservation becomes personal rather than purely academic. This perspective explains why certain design elements were never altered. Maintaining authenticity allowed future generations to understand original living conditions. Oral history interviews later provided valuable insight. These interviews showed how daily life balanced celebration and stress. Fame creates opportunity, but also constant external expectation. Family narratives often reveal emotional details not visible in public media coverage. Documentary researchers rely heavily on these accounts to build balanced historical narratives. They provide context without speculation. This method helps audiences understand complex personalities without reducing them to stereotypes or myths. Lower-level entertainment areas of Graceland revealed another side of Elvis's lifestyle. These spaces were designed for relaxation and social energy. Historians studying creative personalities often note this contrast. Highly controlled work environments are often balanced by expressive private environments. Entertainment rooms provided creative release and social bonding. These spaces reflected how artists process pressure through environment and social interaction. Documentary researchers emphasize that context matters. Social spaces should not automatically be interpreted negatively. Instead, they often reflect coping mechanisms common in entertainment industries. Understanding this balance helps modern audiences see historical figures more realistically. Life is rarely defined by one environment or behavior pattern. Instead, it shifts based on stress, workload, and emotional needs. Silence also played a role in Graceland's historical story. Some areas remained unchanged for decades. This created an unusual form of time preservation. Most homes evolve with new owners, but Graceland remained historically fixed. This allowed historians to study physical living environments exactly as they existed. Environmental preservation helps researchers understand decision-making patterns. Furniture placement, room design, and object arrangement reveal daily habits. This approach is commonly used in historical archaeology and preservation science. By keeping rooms unchanged, preservation teams created a living historical document. Visitors today experience not recreation, but original environment. This increases educational value and historical authenticity. Discussions about secure storage spaces within historic estates are common. Many famous figures preserved sensitive materials in controlled environments. These spaces usually protected documents, recordings, and legal paperwork rather than valuables. Preservation often focuses on protecting historical accuracy rather than secrecy. Sensitive documents sometimes contain medical or financial information requiring legal protection. This does not imply scandal. Instead, it reflects responsible archival management. Documentary research today focuses on verified documentation rather than speculation. This shift improves credibility and long-term educational value. When previously restricted materials are eventually documented, the goal is usually preservation, not exposure. Documentation helps prevent misinformation and historical distortion. High-quality archival photography and digital scanning protect information without damaging originals. These methods allow historians worldwide to study materials responsibly. Modern preservation focuses heavily on digital backup systems. This ensures cultural history survives natural disasters and time-related deterioration. These practices are standard across major historical archives globally. Cultural legacy preservation also involves legal protection. Estates must manage intellectual property, historical property rights, and archival control. Legal challenges sometimes arise, especially with valuable historical estates. These cases highlight how cultural history intersects with modern law. Courts often rely on document verification and historical ownership records. This reinforces the importance of accurate archival preservation. Without documentation, cultural history becomes vulnerable to misinformation and legal disputes. In recent years, public interest has shifted toward balanced historical storytelling. Audiences increasingly prefer verified documentary narratives rather than dramatic speculation. This shift benefits educational content and responsible media production. Monetized documentary content performs better when grounded in research, verified interviews, and contextual analysis. Platforms reward educational storytelling that avoids misinformation. This creates opportunities for historical content creators. Medical and financial records in historical archives often help researchers understand lifestyle patterns. These records are typically protected by privacy laws for specific periods. When released, they are studied in medical history context rather than gossip narratives. This approach helps preserve dignity while supporting academic research. Modern audiences increasingly respect this ethical balance. Religious and personal writings preserved in archives often reveal emotional coping strategies. Many historical figures used writing, faith, or music to manage stress. These patterns appear across cultures and time periods. Studying them helps historians understand psychological resilience in high-pressure careers. This approach creates deeper historical understanding beyond public performance. Practice recordings and unreleased audio often reveal artistic development rather than performance perfection. These materials help music historians understand creative process evolution. Many artists record experimental material that never reaches public release. Studying these recordings helps map artistic growth and emotional expression patterns. Financial records preserved in archives often show career management decisions rather than wealth focus. They reveal touring patterns, production costs, and business strategy. These documents help historians understand entertainment industry economics during specific decades. This adds valuable educational context to music history. Modern documentary storytelling avoids portraying historical figures as myths or tragedies alone. Instead, it presents them as complex individuals shaped by environment.